Well, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our Chapter 14 WIMBA. And so the goal of today's call is just to go over some of the key concepts and techniques in Chapter 14. Now, just as a FYI, I did not include the course framework. I should have put a slide in there before we jump into Chapter 14. But as you may recall from previous calls, we started with forecasting, and then what we did is we used that forecast into our aggregate planning decision making. And as you recall, aggregate planning is a way to ensure we have enough capacity available to meet demand in the most efficient and least risk way. All right. Once we have an aggregate plan at that macro aggregated level, what we do is we break down our aggregate forecast into end items, and that's called the master production schedule. And at that point, then we use some of the concepts that we learned last week in terms of inventory management to handle end item demand. And end item means any demand that, it's typically a product or something that you can sell. All right? So now we're to the point where let's imagine now that we're making these end items, and we need now to balance and schedule the components that go into the end item. And MRP, Materials Requirements Planning, is a mechanism to do that. It ensures that the right components are available in the right amount, at the right time, at the right service level, at the right cost. All right, and so what we're going to do is the book calls it exploding, or breaking down an end item into all of its component parts. All right, it would be like looking at a cake and breaking it down into a recipe of everything that goes into making the cake. All right, and that's basically what exploding would be. And one other comment I did want to make, we are now to the point with the demand is everything that we're going to be doing at the MRP level and below is demand is going to be assumed to be known. We have a forecast at the end item level, and again, we're not going to forecast at the component level. We're going to use the end item level to determine what the component demand is going to be. All right, so the component demand is sometimes called dependent demand because it's dependent upon the end item demand that we've derived from our forecast. All right, so I mentioned that the act of exploding is a way of breaking an end item into its components. Well, one of the tools that we have for doing that is called the bill of materials. And the bill of materials is, you can think of it like a recipe for making an end item. All right, so we can either have an indented bill of material, or we can have a graphical or a product structure tree. And I've shown you more the graphical one, which is a product structure tree. And then these product structure trees have some conventions about them. First of all, at the top, where it says blue marker, level 0, that is the end item. So what this is basically, I imagined bill of material for those blue markers that you use on the whiteboards. All right, so our end item is level 0. And then if we looked and we made our own blue markers, we would see that if we assembled the cap, the embossed shell, and the plug, that would, if we assembled those three things together, we could combine them to make one blue marker. And so the cap, the embossed shell, and the plug, those are called the children of the blue marker, which is the parent. Now, you can go as deep as you want on some of these. Let's say that we make our own inked felt, or we buy ink felt. Well, before we can combine the embossed shell to make a blue marker, we have to put the ink felt into the embossed shell. And so that is called level 2. All right, so inked felt is a child of the shell. The shell is a child of the blue marker. All righty? Okay. So let's, one of the skills that you're going to have to learn in Chapter 14 is how to draw a bill of material. Now, this is an example here. So if I look at Part A, all right, I can see that Part A is composed of 2 B's. So the number in the parentheses after the component is quantity. So it has 2 B's and 3 C's. All right, so what I've done here is I've drawn A. A is the parent, all right? And so you can see here I've drawn its 2 children. There's 2 B's and 3 C's. All right, so there's really no, I mean, you just kind of draw these things as you read them, okay? Then what we do is we have Part B, okay? Part B has, it's the parent to 2 D's and 2 E's. All right, so I've drawn that connection right there. You can see that the B has 2 D's and 2 E's. And then C, if I come along here, C has 2 E's and 2 F's. So again, I've drawn the C connection there. You can see that there's 2 E's and 2 F's for the C that I've drawn there. You can see that D, E, and G have no children, but F does. F has a 1 G and 2 D's, all right? So here we go, we have that one drawn, all right? So this would be an example of how you would draw a bill of materials from just giving a list of the components. Now, in terms of how to interpret this, again, we're doing these by level. So this C3, all right, so this C3 means 3 C's per A, okay? This F2 down here, so F2 means 2 F's per C, okay? So if I need 3 A's, or I'm sorry, if I need 3 C's per A, and if I need 2 F's per C, then how many F's do I need per A? Well, I'm going to need 6, right? So again, don't get confused. These are by level, and the number, the quantity in the parentheses, always refers back to how many of the child there are to the parent. So that F2 says that there are 2 F's per C. That F2 does not mean that there are 2 F's per the end item. These quantities are always relative to the parent, all right, not to the end item. All right, so let's, how many items do we need for then 58 if we use that bill of material? So here's where we get into deducting on-hand amounts. So if we have on-hand amounts, and they're already made so we don't have to make them. So we have to deduct them from the gross requirements. Okay, so here we go. So we need, let's say we need 58, all right? And then if you go to the previous slide, it says that there are 5 A's on hand, right? So if we need 50, we have 5 on hand. So our net A's, we only need to make 45 A's, not 50. All right? So if we go back, we know we need 2 B's per A, right? So if we only need 45 net, then the gross B's we need are 2 times 45, which is 90 B's. Again, we have 5 on hand, so we need a net of 85 B's. All right? And then this is just doing level 1. We also know we need 3 C's per A, so 3 times 45 A's is 135. We have 10 C's on hand, so that gives us a net of 125. All right, so basically all we've done at this point is we've just looked at, again, for 50 A's, how many A, B's, and C's do we need? Okay, so now to do these lower requirements, so let's take a look at F. All right, so we know that there are 2 F's per C. So what we're going to do is we're going to take the net requirements for C. For some reason, this pen is not working. Okay, so we're going to take these net requirements for C. So we have 2 C's per F. That gives us a net or a gross of 250. We have 50 on hand, so that gives us a net F of 200. And then for the E's, we have 2 B's per E, 2 times 85, plus we have 2 C's per E. So we're going to multiply those together. We get a 420 gross. We have 5 on hand. That gives us 415 net. All right. And again, you keep going along and continuing along this. So the whole idea behind this is you work from level 0, then you go down to level 1, then you go down to level 2. And then you always look, again, at how many children per parent are needed, multiply that by the net of the parent, deduct the on hand to get the net of the child. All right? Okay, another thing that that the chapter talks about is they call it an assembly time chart. An assembly time chart is basically looks like a bill of material rotated 90 degrees, but now it's the length. The length of each of these is now going to be the lead time. All right, so for instance, we had A, and A, let's say, takes 1 week. And each A had a child. A had a B and a C. There are 2 B's and 2 C's as a child, okay? But we don't have to put quantities on assembly time charts. We just have to put lead times, all right? So B had a lead time of 2 weeks, and then C had a lead time of 1 week. Okay, so before we can start A in week 9, we have to get done with B and C. All right, so then B had 2 children. It had an E and a D, so those are shown there. So again, we can't start B until the beginning of week 7, and that's when we'll finish E and D. And then C also had a child of E, and C had a child of F. All right, and then F had 2 children, G and D. So again, if you back schedule, if you start from where you need the end item and back schedule, it's telling us here that in order to have these products done by the beginning of week 10, we have to start no later than the beginning of week 3. If we start later than that, we won't be done in time. If we start earlier than that, then we just have a bunch of inventory around that we really don't need. Okay? So for instance, if we started in week 1 and not week 3, then all of our components would just be congesting up everything for 2 weeks before they were needed. All right. So again, what MRP does is it coordinates and schedules all these components so that they're done at the right time in the right amount, and we're not doing things more than we need to or less than we need to. Okay, so the concept of the bill of material, the concept of the assembly time chart, all those things, plus a couple more things, go into an MRP system, all right? So we need the bill of material. We need to know how long it takes, which are lead times for assembly or ordering. We need to know how much amount is on hand. And then another thing we need to know is if we order or make the component, are there any rules around how big the batches are? And those batch sizes are called lot sizes. We need to know the master schedule because that's going to give us the end item demand. And then we need to know scheduled receipts. Scheduled receipts are items that we've already ordered or have started making, but they're not completed. They haven't been finished yet. So we have to keep track of those as well. In terms of what we'll get out from the MRP system, we'll get planned receipts, which it's the amount that we are expecting to receive at the beginning of the period. And then the planned releases are the amount that we expect to order or to make at the beginning of the period. All right. So again, these are just some definitions of some items you'll see on an MRP worksheet. All right, so here's what an MRP record looks like. You can see the first row is the master schedule, okay? And so we're going to work with our example here, and let's say we need 50 A's at the start of week 10. All right, so basically, one product is only going to have one master schedule, and that's that's going to be for the end item. Now, we're going to assume that A is our end item. All right, so we're going to have a record. This is an MRP record here for A, item A. And so what you do for the end item is you bring down the amount and the period that the end item is needed into the end item of the bill of material. It's a level 0. All right. So that's only for the master schedule. So we're just going to bring this 50 down. Now, we weren't given any scheduled receipt, so there's really nothing that we've ordered or started making already that's not done. But we do know that we have 5 on hand. So again, our net requirement is the same as what we just did in that one example. It's going to be our gross minus our on hand. So we have a 45 net requirement of A's that we either need to make or order. So in order to meet this 45 requirement, we have to plan to receive 45 at the start of week 10. And so with a lead time then of 1 week, we have to release or start working at that order at the beginning of period 9. All right? So this particular example is asking how many E's are needed if 50 A's are scheduled. Now, we already, we'll just work through this example. Okay, so remember E was on level 2. So what we have to do is we have to do MRP records for level 0, level 1, and level 2, because again, we work from the top down when we're doing MRP. So again, we know we need 45, we need to order or start making 45 A's at the beginning of week 9, all right? All right, so now we know that here's B. So remember, hold on a second here. 45, so these are 45 A's, okay? So then we're going to come down, and so there were 45 A's. This should be, sorry, this was in week, this should be week 9, all right? Okay, so we know that there are 2 B's per A. So where did this 90 come from? It came from the A right above it. There were 2 B's per A, and we needed a planned order release of 45 A's in period 9. So what we're going to do to get the children's gross requirements is we're going to multiply. We're going to keep them in the same time period as the parents' planned release, but we're going to multiply them by how many children there are per parent. So that's how we got the 90. We have 5 B's on hand, so that gives us a net of 85. So we have to plan to receive 85 in week 9. And again, with a 2-week lead time, that means we have to plan to release it in, this should be week 7. Okay. Okay, and then we also know that C is a child of A, okay? So we had 45 A's in week 9, and if we multiply the 45 times 3 C's per A, we get a gross requirement of C of 135. There are 10 C's on hand, so this gives us a net of 125 C's. Now, C has what's called a lot size. We can only make in, I think it was either 150 or either 75 or 150 batch sizes. So even though we need 125 C's, we have to order in the 150 batch. So we order the 150 batch. It's got a lead time of 1 week, so that means we have to order that at the beginning of week 8. And then we have 25 left over, all right? All right, and then finally, this should be E. It doesn't look like it, but it should be E. All right, and I'm trying to remember here, there were, let's just go back here. We have 85 B's and 150 C's, okay? So we need 2 E's per C, that's where that 300 comes from. And we need, how many, 2 E's per, I'm sorry, 2 B's per E. We have 20 scheduled receipts in period 5. So the rule is you just use those like inventory. So those are going to come in on period 5. We have 5 on hand. So basically, we have 25 projected on hand. So that gives us a net of 145. We have to plan to receive the 145 in period 6. And then with a 2-week lead time, we have to release it in period 4. We use up all our inventory for that first order, so we have 0 left. And again, we need a net of 300. We have to plan to receive that 300 week 7. And again, we have to start making it 2 weeks in advance so that it's ready by the time we need it. So we're going to release that order in week 5. Okay, so this probably is it may be a little confusing to you, and I apologize for that. But again, this is how these MRP records work. So what I'd recommend is you go through an example in the book, and it'll, again, explain how the records work between each other and how you, you use scheduled receipts and on-hand amounts to get your net requirements. Okay, but basically what the MRP system will do is it'll just give out planned releases. So if I'm a department running E's, all I'm going to get from the MRP system is I need to start making 145 in week 4, and I need to start making 300 in week 5. All right, because again, we're now to, like, this goes to a specific department that only makes E's. And so that's all I'm going to see. I'm not going to see this whole thing. I'm just going to see, the results of what the record of the system tells me I need to order. Okay, so this week is just learning a little bit about MRP and how we manage components. Just as a friendly reminder, your Chapter 14 homework is due this Sunday. And then your second quiz, which will be on Chapters 12 and 14, will be available first thing Saturday morning, I promise. And it'll be due by midnight on Sunday night. So if you have any questions, please let me know. Happy to answer them either on the discussion board or you can email me directly. And I hope you have a great week and enjoy MRP. I'll talk to you all next week. Thank you. Bye-bye.